Welcome back to Ask Rad Rat, where I answer all of your questions about skateboarding topics. I do a lot more than just this. I have videos on all kinds of different subjects in the skateboarding world. But let's get to it. Got two for you today. First one is, where would skateboarding be without Pat Duffy? And this is from Gaia's Blessing. So what Pat Duffy was known for in the early 90s was really pushing big handrails. If you haven't seen his video parts from back then, he's like the first guy to do a big lip slide on a handrail. He was the guy who really started pushing actual tricks on rails. So before him, you'd see like a board slide, 50-50, and people would do like a nose slide, nose grab thing. And they'd do like a 3-set and just kind of tap it. And then he was the first guy to really do what we would kind of consider like modern handrail skating. You know, getting on a big rail and sliding all the way down, doing different tricks, nose grinds, back lip, all that kind of stuff. And so I think he really pushed skateboarding in that direction. One of his suggestions was that it could be possible that he progressed skateboarding by a certain number of months or years or weeks or whatever. But I don't think it works quite that simply, because skateboarding could go in an infinite number of different directions. You know, maybe handrails could have become uncool and it was all about bombing hills and, you know, whatever. There's so many different categories in skateboarding that handrails didn't necessarily have to become the big thing in the 90s. And I think Pat Duffy in particular was one of the big reasons why it did become that way. So then you had Chad Muska and all those guys that came a little bit later probably looked up to him and pushed it even further because of him. So I think some of the reasons handrails have endured for this long may have been because of Pat Duffy. It's, you know, other people were doing handrails. It could have gone further and further and, you know, it turned out the same way. But maybe it would have just become more technical. This is the early 90s. This is everyone doing triple flips and pressure flips and all kinds of the most technical stuff you can come up with. Maybe instead of bigger, longer rails, it would have been more about kick flipping onto a 3-set rail or something like that. And then who knows what would have happened. So I do think that he had a good influence and he left his mark. But I think skateboarding would probably be in a similar place today if it weren't for him. All right, my second question is from Solo Dolo, who says, do you think skaters are too good to the point where it's like watching robots to an extent? That's a good question. I can give you a good example of that being the case. He mentioned P-Rod and a couple others, but I think one of the biggest examples for me is PJ Ladd. So I've talked about his part in Wonderful Horrible Life before. I think it's one of the best video parts ever made. It's really creative. He does a lot of weird like grind switching and stuff that you don't see all the time. And it's just a really inventive, really good part. And then after he got big, it seemed like all he wanted to do was land everything perfectly, and he really toned down the technical and the creative aspects of his skating. So you don't see him like, he was in the Flip video, I think, and a couple other ones, but I've never really seen him recapture that again, because it's more about switch, backside heel flip, perfect landing, and then cut. And that's it. And for me, it's kind of less interesting to watch. As difficult as that is, and as impressive as that is, I could imagine that. You know, he didn't take a new angle at this and come up with something crazy and interesting. It's just a trick done really, really well. And that's cool. A lot of people are into watching that. But I think having a little bit of loose, a little bit of sketchy helps really sell how difficult it is, because it's easy to forget. When you're seeing someone flying down, you know, they just went down a hill, they got a ton of speed and they do a tray flip. When it's perfect, it just looks like it's no big deal. But if they land a little bit loose and they kind of, whoa, then you get more impressed. Like, oh man, I can't believe you pulled that off. So for me, I think having a little bit of more personality in your skating too is definitely a good thing. But there's room for everything in skateboarding. So it's cool that everything is out there and you can have your own opinions. But tell me what you think about that in the comments. Also, leave all your questions for the next batch of Ask Rad Rat. You can either do it here or on Instagram or Twitter. I have links to those below. Until next time, here are some more videos that I made recently you might want to check out, and thank you for watching.